heart. Like, it pisses me off that so many women don't have someone to explain to them how a male's mind works until it is too late. When a man is checking out, the first sign is the communication dies off. He takes hours to respond. He stops initiating conversations, the little phone calls, the little good morning texts.
If a guy stops arguing, that's not submission. That's him checking out. He argued because he cared. He explained because he thought clarity mattered. He kept trying to be understood by someone who only wanted to manipulate him. So then he adapted. He stopped explaining. He stopped correcting. That's called resignation.
This is the exact moment a man emotionally checks out, and most women miss it. Doesn't happen after a fight. Doesn't happen when things go wrong. It happens when things feel too easy. You're showing up, you're consistent, you're giving your time, your energy, your attention, and it feels like you're doing everything right.
There was a moment a lot of men stopped trying, and most of them didn't even notice when. It was not a decision. There was no day they sat down and chose to opt out. They just stopped reaching for things they used to reach for. They stopped showing up in places they used to show up. They stopped chasing things they used to chase. And one day they looked around and realized the version of themselves that was always pushing forward has been gone for a while. If you're a man right now and any part of that landed, that is not a coincidence. That is recognition. Because you have been feeling this happen for years without anyone naming it for you. Here's the part that will stop you cold. You are not the only one. This is happening to millions of men in the exact same time. And what feels personal to you, stopped being personal a long time ago. Because when enough men make the same private decision, it stops being a personal story. It becomes an economic event. And right now, that event has a price tag. Everything built on men keeps collapsing. And the bill no one planned for is coming due. The housing market, the birth rate, the labor force, the marriage rate, every single one of those systems was built on the assumption that men would keep showing up, keep approaching, keep buying houses, keep building families, keep working jobs that they hated to fund the life that they were promised. A lot of men stopped doing that because nothing about staying in was paying them back anymore. Researchers just gave it a name. They are calling it a dating recession. The first recession in modern history where nothing crashed. No market collapse, no layoffs, no headlines. People just stopped showing up. I'm going to walk you through exactly what is collapsing, exactly who is paying for it, and exactly why the bill is bigger than anyone has ever admitted. Because what started in one man's personal decision is now showing up in every economic indicator this country tracked. The first thing collapsing is dating itself. The all-in cost of a first date in the United States hit $189 in 2025, up from $168 the year before.
Yo, dating in 2026 is cooked. I'm not even gonna sugarcoat it. You got people out here manufacturing themselves. Fake bodies, fake lifestyles, fake personalities. And then they out here walking around like there's some prize no one can afford. Like, relax. You didn't build yourself. You bought the look. And now you want that premium treatment off a rented identity. Please make it make sense. You want dinner dates, gifts, princess treatment from day one.
A 2025 survey from J.G. Wentworth found that 86% of Americans have put off dating because of financial concerns, and 87% have canceled a date over cost. Almost 9 out of every 10 people in this country have canceled a date because they couldn't afford to go. So men did the math, and men stopped paying. And the consequences came fast. The Institute for Family Studies labeled it a dating recession in their February 2026 report. The marriage rate hit a 50-year low. Married couples now lead only 47.1% of American households, down from over 78% in the late 1940s. 1 in 4 40-year-old American adult have never been married, an all-time record. Men didn't break the dating system. They just stopped being the ones holding it up. And once they step back, you can see exactly what the system was built on. Their participation, their wallets, their willingness to keep paying for a return that kept getting smaller. That was the first place it showed up. The next place was bigger. The next thing collapsing is the entire housing market. The median price of a U.S. home crossed $441,000 in 2025.
This is the biggest fraud perpetrated on the working class people. Well, it looks painless at first. Right. In America, over the last 55 years, you've doubled the number of homes in America from about 70 million to 150 million. You know how much the money supply has grown? 30 times. So you have twice the homes, but 30 times the cash. So what's happened? Housing costs have gone up 15-fold in 55 years.
Problem is that the average American makes between $50,000 to $70,000 a year. And it would take them, without spending any money on car notes, paying off a car loan, paying off student loans, 20 years to save up $100,000. That's about $2,700 you put away every single month for 20 years to save up $100,000.
Mortgage rates sat between 6 and 7%. The monthly cost of owning a median home reached around $3,000, roughly half the median household pre-tax income. For a single man trying to buy a loan, the math simply did not exist. The version of home ownership people are chasing today was never designed for one income. It was built on two. A house used to be the proof that a man made it. Now, for a lot of men, it is just a receipt for a life that they can't even afford. So men stopped trying, and the housing market started showing it immediately. First-time home buyers in 2024 made up only 24% of the housing market, the lowest share recorded since 1981. The median age of a first-time buyer jumped from 35 to 38 in a single year. And in 2023, 61% of home buyers were married, while only 10% were unmarried. The housing market in America runs on married couples. When men stop forming households, the entire buyer pipeline collapses with them. The home ownership rate among Americans aged 25 to 34 fell from 54% in 1980 to around 35% in 2025. That is the youngest generation of buyers disappearing from the market entirely. Every homeowner watching property values stall, every builder watching inventory sit, every realtor watching the pipeline run dry, they are all paying for something they did not cause. When men stop being able to afford the life that they were sold, the entire economy built on that life starts to crack. That is the housing collapse. The next piece of evidence is even more uncomfortable. Then there's the part of this that has been collapsing for 50 years. Nobody just told the men. A 2025 study from researchers at Cornell, Yale, and Harvard found that the average annual earning for non-college educated men in real terms declined over the past 50 years. By their analysis, a non-college educated man at age 45 in 2024 earned approximately about $46,000 annually. That figure represents a roughly 10,000 real decline from where it stood 5 decades ago. The men society kept calling lazy were actually being paid less in real money than their fathers and grandfathers were paid for the same work. The expectation placed on men stayed exactly the same. The ability to meet them disappeared. So men stopped agreeing to be measured by a standard the system no longer rewarded. And the consequences was inevitable. Marriage rates among non-college educated men collapsed. The Cornell research showed that as men's earnings dropped, women without college degrees lost access to the partnership that used to anchor working class families. Fewer marriages, fewer households, fewer children, fewer homes purchased, fewer of every economic engine that runs on stable male earnings. You cannot keep raising the cost of being a man and lowering the reward and expect men to keep showing up. When men finally stopped showing up, it did not look like a protest. It looked like silence. And that silence cost the economy more than anyone realized. And then there's what's happening to men socially. A consequence the country has been trying to call a personal problem. In 1990, 55% of American men reported having 6 or more close friends. By 2024, that figure dropped to 27%. Cut in half. The percentage of men with 0 close friends jumped from 3% to 17%, a more than 5-fold increase. Among single men, 1 in 5 reports having no close friends at all. Gallup data from 2023 to 2024 showed that 25% of American men aged 15 to 34 felt lonely for a large portion of the previous day, the loneliest demographic in the entire developed world. So, men retreated. They stopped pursuing connection in places that no longer offered it. They built lives that did not require the outside world to function. And it showed up in numbers no one is comfortable saying. Loneliness now costs the U.S. economy an estimated $406 billion annually in workplace absenteeism and lost productivity. $406 billion, larger than the GDP of most countries on the planet. The American Psychological Association classifies loneliness as a public health crisis with health consequences comparable to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. And men are now overrepresented in nearly every serious mental health outcome we measure in this country, despite being just under half the population. This was never a personal problem. This was an economic emergency wearing the costume of one. And every employer, every health insurer, every taxpayer in this country is paying for what the men who checked out stopped funding themselves. Then it starts affecting the population itself. The U.S. fertility rate dropped below 1.6 children per woman, a record low, far below the 2.1 replacement rate required to maintain a stable population.
The nation's fertility rate fell to another record low last year. That's according to provisional data out today from the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. There were just over 53 births per 1,000 women of childbearing age in 2025. That is down from nearly 54 births the year before and continues a trend that dates back to 2007. The overall number of babies born in the U.S. last year also slipped to around 3.6 million. One factor driving the decline has been lower birth rates for teens and women in their 20s.
The reason why birth rates are so low is because people can only afford 1 kid, and a lot of people can't even afford that. I believe you have to be making $50,000 for every child that you have. If the average income is around 40, 60, 50K a year, 1 kid, you're done.
Researchers have documented direct links between housing unaffordability, declining marriage rates, and falling birth rates. When men cannot afford to partner, women cannot afford to have children with them. The two collapse together. So the reaction was inevitable. Fewer relationships, fewer marriages, fewer babies. An entire country are showing the consequences now. South Korea hit a fertility rate of 0.7. Japan dropped below 1.2. The United States is following the same trajectory. Governments are spending billions on incentives to convince young people to have children. None of it is working because you cannot solve a male withdrawal problem with a fertility incentive. The men who checked out of dating, marriage, and home buying did not stop wanting families. They stopped being able to afford them. This is not a population problem. This is a participation problem. And the next piece of evidence makes it impossible to deny. And it doesn't stop there. The withdrawal is now showing up in the workforce. In 1958, 97% of American men aged 25 to 54 participated in labor force. By 2024, that number was 89%. Approximately 6.8 million prime-age American men, about 10% of the population in that age bracket, are now neither working nor looking for work, compared to just 2% in 1954. Men are not just leaving dating. They are leaving the entire structure of expecting adult male life. So they reacted by withdrawing from the role itself. Not just the job, the identity attached to the job, the expectation attached to the identity, the system attached to the expectation. And the cost of that withdrawal is enormous. The American economy lost millions of working hours, billions in tax revenues, and the entire pipeline of new household formation that comes from men in their prime earning years. Federal Reserve economists have called this one of the most significant economic concern facing the country. And almost nobody is connecting it back to the dating recession, the housing collapse, the earning decline, or the loneliness epidemic. They are all the same story, the same population of men, the same withdrawal, the same domino falling in slow motion. When you tell men that participation does not matter, eventually they believe you and then they stop participating. So here's the answer to the question. What happens to a country when men check out? Everything built on men keeps collapsing. And the bill no one planned on is coming due. A dating recession officially declared in 2026. A housing market with first-time buyers at a 43-year low. Men's real earning down $10,000 over 50 years. A loneliness crisis costing $406 billion a year. A birth rate below replacement. And 6.8 million prime-age men out of the workforce entirely. Every single one of these numbers is connected. Every single one of them traces back to the same population of men. And every single one of them got worse the moment those men decided the cost of participating was no longer worth the return. This is not a story about men giving up. This is a story about a system that kept raising the cost of being a man and kept lowering the reward, and then acted surprised when men finally said no. The economy was built on the assumption that men would keep showing up, keep paying, keep producing, keep absorbing the cost without ever asking what they were getting back. And now that an entire generation has started running the math out loud, the receipts are coming in for everyone. For the men watching this, you are not alone in what you've been feeling. The decline you sense in your wallet, in your social life, in your dating life, in your sense of purpose was real. It was documented. It was measurable. You did not imagine it. The system did break. And the cost of that breakdown is going to be paid by everyone, not just the men who walked away. For the women watching this conversation is not about blame. The men who stepped back did not do it despite anyone. They did it because the math stopped working. And what is happening to them is not separate from what's happening to you. Both of you are inside a system that stopped delivering what it promised. And both of you are paying for it in different ways. When the reward disappears, effort does not get louder. It goes silent. And that is exactly what just happened to half of the country. I want to hear from you on this one. If you're a man who recognizes yourself in any part of this, the dating cost, the housing crisis, the earning drop, the workforce withdrawal, what was the moment you knew that you were being asked to fund something that was not going to fund you back? It's been your girl, Rene. I'll see you guys in my next video.